The storm had swallowed the sun hours ago. James Holloway squinted through the windshield, the rain falling like nails against the glass, the wipers barely managing to keep up. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel as his rental car crawled down the narrow two-lane highway, swallowed in darkness. Somewhere along Route 27, nestled between forgotten forests and crumbling telephone poles, his GPS had blinked out. No signal. No service. Just endless trees and the sound of his own breath. He cursed under his breath. His meeting in Fayetteville had run late, and the detour hadn't helped. What should be been a 3-hour drive turned into 6, and now, with fuel low and visibility near zero, he needed to stop. The glowing fuel icon on the dashboard blinked insistently. Then, like a mirage, he saw it. A flicker of orange neon broke through the sheets of rain. Miller's Inn, the sign declared, half the letters missing or struggling to stay lit. The N buzzed faintly like a dying firefly. Below it, vacancy in red, bold letters that shimmered like blood in the rain. James sighed in relief and turned onto the gravel driveway, the wheels crunching against loose stones. The inn stood like a relic from the 1960s, 2 stories, 8 rooms, an L-shaped structure around a parking lot with only one other car. A dull, flickering porch light cast shadows that danced with the wind. Moss crawled up the edges of the walls. The kind of place people pass by and don't even remember seeing. He pulled into a spot, turned off the ignition, and sat there for a moment. The rain continued its furious descent, drumming on the roof. He was soaked the second he stepped out. With his duffel bag slung over one shoulder, he rushed under the overhang, his leather shoes already soaked. The front door creaked open before he could knock. An old woman stood behind the counter, her silver hair coiled tightly into a bun. She looked like she'd been carved out of wax, thin, pale, and stiff, with eyes that didn't seem to blink. Her name tag read Gloria, but the letters were faded and scratched. Behind her, a key rack hung on the wall, with small brass keys labeled with room numbers from 301 to 308. Most were still hanging. "Evening," James said, brushing wet hair from his forehead. "Do you have a room?" She nodded slowly. "We have many rooms. Not many come through here anymore." James forced a smile. "Yeah, looks like it. I just need a bed for the night. My car's nearly out of gas, and I couldn't get any signal." "You won't get signal here. Towers don't reach this far." "Not since the..." She stopped abruptly, her lips twitching. James tilted his head. "Since the what?" But she only turned around and reached for a key on the rack. "Room 312, she said, handing it to him. The key was brass, cold, and heavy in his palm. A thick red tag hung from it, chipped at the corners. The number 312 was written in old black ink, the kind that seemed to bleed with time. Then her hand hovered over another key, 313. But it remained untouched. He followed her gaze. "Is 313 taken?" A silence stretched between them. Her eyes slowly turned to meet his. "That room is already occupied." "By who?" She paused. "Just, don't knock. Don't talk to her. She doesn't like being disturbed." James stared, unsure whether to laugh or raise an eyebrow. The tension in her voice wasn't performative. It was real. Her hands trembled slightly as she returned the 313 key to its hook. A gust of wind moaned outside, shaking the glass of the front door. James cleared his throat. "Right. Okay. 312 it is." She slid a worn ledger toward him. Name. Time. Initial. He signed quickly, trying to ignore the creaky atmosphere. As she slid the book back, he noticed something. The last name before his. It was dated nearly 3 weeks ago. And it was the same handwriting. Same name. Eleanor Griggs. But that couldn't be right. Could it? James blinked at the name. Eleanor Griggs. It sat on the page like a smudge from the past, written with the same pressure and slant as the entry above. A coincidence, maybe. But his gut twitched. You said 313 is taken, he asked, casually. Gloria's pale fingers snapped the ledger closed with an audible thwack. She's still there. That was a strange way to say it. Still there. Before James could say anything else, she motioned to the hallway. Upstairs, end of the left corridor. Your room is next to hers. Be quiet. He nodded slowly. The key felt heavier in his palm than it should be. The in's silence pressed in like fog as he walked down the dim corridor, the old floorboards groaning beneath each step. A single wall sconce flickered as he passed it. The hallway turned left at the end, where stairs creaked under his weight. 3rd floor. The numbers painted on the doors were faded but legible. 309, 310. 311. He paused at 312, slipping the key into the lock. Before turning it, something made him glance at the door beside his. Room 313. The number was slightly off-center, hanging crookedly from a bent nail. The wood beneath the plaque was darker stained, maybe. A faint scent of lavender clung to the hallway like invisible fog, gentle but cold. James turned his key and entered his room. The interior was surprisingly clean, if not dated. A modest double bed with a stiff comforter. A nightstand with a lamp. A rotary phone that looked like it hadn't rung since Nixon. A dresser with a warped mirror above it. Curtains with tiny embroidered violets. It was the kind of room where time stood still. He dropped his bag and collapsed onto the bed, exhaling deeply. The sound of the rain muffled outside, but the window groaned slightly in its frame as wind curled around the building. After changing into a dry shirt and joggers, he plugged in his phone, though there was no service and no Wi-Fi. The only light came from the lamp beside his bed, casting long, stretching shadows across the carpet. Then, tap, tap, tap. He froze. It was coming from the wall behind the headboard. From 313. Just pipes, he told himself. But the taps came again. Deliberate. Measured. Tap. 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 3 knocks. Like a code. Like someone wanted him to answer. He turned off the lamp. Darkness settled in like a shroud. Stillness returned. Until. Whispering. His eyes snapped open. It was faint. Just beyond the wall. Like breath against a pillow. Muffled syllables, broken phrases, spoken by a voice too soft to recognize. A woman's voice. James sat up in bed, heart beating fast. He leaned slightly toward the wall. Nothing. Just as he was about to lie back down, a note of lavender crept into the room. It wasn't tea like before. It was stronger. Fresh. He turned toward the air vent above the dresser. The scent was pouring in through it. He walked to it slowly, hands on his knees, peering inside. No light. Just shadow. But the scent was real. It wrapped around him like a cold hand. Suddenly, he heard it. A hum. Soft, low, and sad. A woman humming a lullaby. And it was coming from room 313. James didn't sleep well. He tossed and turned as shadows danced across the ceiling. At some point, he woke up gasping from a dream he couldn't remember. Something about a woman at the foot of his bed, watching him. Her hair covered her face. Her hands were folded over her chest like a corpse laid to rest. When he looked closer, her skin was pale blue. Frozen. When he finally sat up, the room was silent. The storm had passed. He checked the time 4:12 a.m. And that's when he noticed something strange on the nightstand. A key. Not his key. Not the brass one for 312. This one was antique. Older. Its teeth were jagged, and it had a dull red tag with faded gold script. 313. He stared at it. It wasn't there when he fell asleep. He hadn't left his room. No one had entered. There were no sounds. But the key was there. Waiting. James stared at the red-tagged key for what felt like hours, though the clock beside him still glowed a quiet 4:12 a.m. The seconds ticked by in audible little jolts, but the room itself felt timeless, thick with something that didn't belong. He didn't touch the key. Not yet. Just looking at it was enough to make his chest tighten. He reached for his phone. No signal. No Wi-Fi. Just the blinking battery icon mocking him in the upper corner of the screen. He tossed it aside with a frustrated sigh. The humming was gone now. The lavender scent had faded. Everything was silent. Too silent. He rose from the bed and approached the nightstand. The key sat there, innocently, like it had always belonged. He touched it ice cold. The brass had a slight tacky feel, like old blood beginning to dry. His fingertips recoiled slightly. He set it down again. No. This was ridiculous. Someone must be playing a joke, he told himself. The old woman downstairs, or maybe a weirdo in the next town who liked messing with city travelers. Maybe the inn had its legends, its ghosts, but it was all nonsense. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that if he opened that door, he wouldn't come back. He paced the room, restless. Then he noticed something. The mirror above the dresser. There was a smudge on it. Not just any smudge, a streak. Faint, almost invisible unless the light hit it just right. He moved closer. It looked like writing. He leaned in, breath fogging the surface as he strained to see the shapes. I wait. 2 words, dragged through the dust like someone had traced them with a trembling finger. He turned, slowly. Nothing behind him. No one. But the air had changed. Colder now. Still. Heavy. The kind of stillness that came right before something broke. He looked down at the key. And this time, he picked it up. He stood in front of room 313, heart hammering in his chest. The corridor was bathed in a pale, flickering glow from a single overhead bulb. It buzzed quietly, threatening to die. James held the key loosely, almost like it might burn him. The door to 313 looked the same as before, old, slightly warped, the number plaque still crooked. But now it felt alive. He leaned closer. No sound. He placed the key into the lock. Paused. And then turned it. The click echoed like a scream in the silence. The door creaked open a sliver. A gust of cold air kissed his face, and for the briefest moment, he smelled it again, lavender, aged and rotting beneath something sweeter, like perfume that had gone sour. He pushed the door open fully. The room inside was dark, but not empty. His fingers fumbled for the light switch. A dim amber lamp on the far nightstand flickered to life, casting a low glow over the room. And it was like stepping into another time. Thick lace curtains hung from the window, yellowed with age. A small piano rested in the corner, its keys dust-covered and cracked. The bed was neatly made, with hospital corner precision and a crocheted blanket at its edge. A vanity table sat opposite the bed, its mirror shattered in a web of fractures. And on that mirror, written in thick, smeared strokes, "I wait for who left me." James felt a chill race down his spine. The door behind him clicked shut. He turned around, no wind, no movement, but the door was firmly closed. He tried the knob. Locked. Of course. He whispered under his breath, "What the hell is this?" No answer. Just the faintest creak of the floorboards behind him. He spun. Nothing. But the air. The air was moving. As if someone had just passed by. He crossed the room slowly. Each step felt like walking through molasses. Time dilated, the walls stretched, the light dimmed. Then the piano let out a sound. A single key, pressed softly. A low note, sad and solemn. James froze. Another key. Another note. It was playing. No one was at the piano. He backed away slowly, heart in his throat. That S when he saw her. In the corner. Facing the window. A woman. She stood perfectly still, her back to him, dressed in a long black dress with sheer lace sleeves. Her hair was pinned in a messy chignon, dark tendrils falling down her neck. Her hands were by her sides, limp. She made no move, no sound. Just stood there. Waiting. James could barely speak. Hello. No answer. He took a slow step forward. Are you okay? Still nothing. Another step. I didn't mean to come in. The door was unlocked and her head twitched. Just slightly. Not a full turn. Not even a glance. Just a jolt, like someone had whispered her name from far away. James stopped breathing. She began to hum. The same lullaby from the air vent. Soft, sad, endless. And then without warning she turned. But only her head. And only enough for him to see her face in profile. It was wrong. One eye was gone, just a black hollow where it should be been. Her lips were stitched together with thick, uneven thread. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, stretched too tight over her bones. The humming never stopped. Even though her mouth didn't move. Even though it couldn't, James backed away. She stepped toward him. Once. Twice. The floor creaked. He reached for the doorknob and twisted. It didn't budge. She kept moving. Her steps were slow but steady. The humming grew louder. He slammed his fist into the door. Help. The lights flickered. Everything went dark. Darkness. Not just the absence of light, this darkness felt thick, like it had weight. Like it had presence. James's breath quickened. He reached out blindly, fingers scrabbling for the door, the knob, anything. But the cold wood he once touched was gone, as if the room had shifted. He wasn't alone. That soft humming still filled the space. Not coming from one direction anymore, but all around him. Inside him. James backed away slowly, arms outstretched in the pitch black, heart pounding in his throat. Then, a whisper, right beside his ear. "You heard me." James screamed, spinning toward the voice, but there was no one. Just darkness. And that scent, lavender, sickly sweet and decaying. A sharp breath echoed behind him. Then a whisper again, closer. "You came back." His foot caught on something soft, like cloth, and he stumbled backward, crashing into the vanity. The mirror. It wasn't broken anymore. It was whole. But the reflection staring back at him wasn't his. It was her. The woman. Standing right where he stood, face pale and hollow. Her stitched mouth unmoving. But her eyes, black, wet, endless, were wide open. Staring into him. James looked down, nothing in front of him, but in the mirror she reached forward. So did his own hands. No, her hands. He wasn't controlling them anymore. They moved without him, slowly lifting toward the mirror. Toward her. The glass began to ripple. Like water. "You should not have opened the door," the voice whispered from the walls. Suddenly, the lights exploded. Bulbs burst in violent pops. Shards of glass rained down. The woman stepped out of the mirror. Her black dress trailed behind like a shadow, bleeding into the floor. James stumbled back, screaming. She reached for him, fingers long and gnarled like tree roots, her sewn mouth slowly opening with a sickening tear, the threads snapping one by one. And then, silence. Total. James awoke in room 312. Drenched in sweat. He bolted upright, gasping for air, clutching the blanket like it could shield him. Morning light bled in through the curtains. Birds chirped outside. The clock read 8:09 a.m. It was a dream. That's all. A nightmare. He swung his legs over the bed and stopped. On the nightstand sat a single item. The antique key. Tag 313. Still cold. Still waiting. And on the wall above his bed, drawn in long, trembling scratches. "You belong to her now." The sky outside had turned a dull gray, as if the world itself had gone silent in mourning. James stood at the mirror in room 312, staring at the scratch marks above his bed. "You belong to her now." He ran his fingers over the grooves. They were real. Not a dream. Not a trick of the light. Not a bad night's sleep in an old motel. The antique key to room 313 still sat on his nightstand, same dull red tag, same jagged teeth. It hadn't moved. But he had. Something had happened in that room. Something that felt less like a nightmare and more like a warning. He grabbed his bag, stuffing his few belongings into it with frantic energy. He needed to leave. He didn't care about the storm or the car or the INS return policy. He was done. But as he pulled open the door to the hallway, Gloria was standing there. Like she had been waiting. Her face was blank. No smile. No warmth. Just, watching. "You went into 313, she said softly. James's throat tightened. I didn't mean to." The door was unlocked and... "It's always unlocked," she interrupted. Silence stretched between them. "I saw her," James said, barely above a whisper. "She was in there." "She came out of the mirror." Gloria nodded once, like she'd heard it all before. James blinked. "You knew." "I told you to be quiet," she replied coldly. "But you knocked. You entered. And now she's heard your name." He stepped back. This is insane. You're all insane. Gloria didn't react. She only tilted her head slightly and said, she chooses one. James pushed past her, rushing down the stairs 2 at a time. The lobby was empty. No other guests. No cars outside. No sounds. When he reached the front desk, the leather-bound guest book sat open on the counter. Something compelled him to look. There on the page. His name, James Evans, room 312. And directly below it, written in red ink, not his handwriting, claimed by her. James recoiled. He looked behind him. No one. He slammed the book shut and ran for the front doors. They wouldn't open. Not stuck. Locked. He pounded against them. No, 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 no. His voice echoed back at him, swallowed by the silence of the inn. He was trapped. Again. Back upstairs, the key to 313 had vanished. The scratches on the wall were gone too. As if someone had come and cleaned it all while he was downstairs. James sat on the edge of his bed, breathing heavily, eyes flicking to the vent above the dresser. The humming had returned. Only now, he recognized the lullaby. It was one his mother used to sing when he had nightmares. And he had never told anyone about it. Not a soul. The walls felt like they were closing in. Then, from the hallway a knock. 3 times. Tap. 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 Room 313. Calling again. The hallway felt longer now. Room 313 sat at the end like a wound refusing to heal. The door stood closed, but James could feel it watching him like the room itself had eyes. He hadn't moved for hours. Not since the knock. The sun had set again. A second day lost to confusion, dread, and the strange gravity of the inn that refused to let him leave. The power had flickered once, then gone entirely. Only the soft glow of a candle he found in the drawer illuminated the room. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls, as if trying to reach him. The mirror above the dresser had changed again. This time, there was no reflection. Just fog. Endless, churning fog. And in that fog, a figure. Distant at first. Slowly moving forward. James stumbled back, knocking over the candle. Shadows spilled into the room as it went out, but before the flame vanished completely, he saw it. Just for a moment. A hand. Pressing from inside the mirror. James bolted from room 312, heart racing, slamming into the hallway with the force of a man running from fire. The corridor was darker than before. The wallpaper seemed to peel in long strips. The ceiling sagged in places like the inn was rotting from the inside. Yet room 313 remained untouched. Perfect. Silent. Whole. He turned the opposite way, toward the stairwell. But the stairs were gone. In their place only a blank wall. James stared. He touched it. Solid. Cold. As if the building had shifted around him. As if there had never been an exit at all. Behind him, the doorknob to room 313 rattled. Once. Twice. A third time. And then stilled. Back in the lobby, he returned to the guest book, begging for something. Some clue. He flipped through the pages. And that's when he found them. Names. Dozens. Each with a room number. And a second line written in red beneath them, claimed. 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 Some entries were old. Others more recent. He flipped faster. Then he saw it. Margaret Evans, room 313 to 1987. His mother's name. He froze. The name he hadn't spoken aloud since he was a child. The lullaby, the mirror, it wasn't random. James staggered back, heart thunderous. No. No, she died in a car accident. She wasn't here. She couldn't have been here. But the book didn't lie. And neither did the voice now whispering from the stairwell behind him. She never left. James followed the whisper. He didn't know why. Maybe it was madness. Maybe it was fate. But something inside him, the part of him that still remembered bedtime songs and half-burned photographs, needed to know. He walked back toward room 313. The door was open. Just a crack. A sliver of lavender-scented air curling from inside. The candle he dropped earlier was now sitting on the ground just outside the threshold, relit. Waiting. He stepped inside. Everything was the same as before. The vanity. The broken piano. The mirror. But this time, the figure inside the glass was clear. Not the woman. His mother. Margaret. Still beautiful, still wearing the necklace he remembered from his childhood. She smiled at him. James trembled. Mom. She nodded. He took a step closer. And her smile widened too wide. The skin at the corners of her lips began to tear. Her jaw split downward. Not like a smile. Like a maw. And behind that mask, beneath her skin, the woman. The one who waited. Always waiting. The mirror shattered outward. Chapter 4, One Must Stay. Glass rained down. The mirror exploded in a burst of screaming reflections. James fell back, shielding his face, but even through the pain, he saw her. The woman. Not a ghost. Not a hallucination. Real. Her long black dress floated behind her like smoke underwater. Her mouth, no longer stitched shut, hung open, jaw cracked, gaping, as if unhinged from the very laws of the living. From the hole that was her mouth came a voice. She called for me. Long ago. You never heard her. But I did. James crawled backward, blood streaking down his temple where a shard had sliced him. He gripped the wall, the floor, anything but his body felt numb, like her presence was poisoning the air itself. The woman moved without touching the ground, gliding forward like time forgotten. James screamed, "What are you?" A promise. A memory. A curse. She lifted a hand. Black smoke poured from her sleeves like ink in water. One must stay. The room began to change around him. The walls peeled away to reveal not rotted wood, but faces trapped in the grain of the paneling. Hundreds of them. All open-mouthed, screaming silently. Eyes wide in eternal horror. He recognized one. A boy who vanished when James was 12. Then another. The girl from the missing flyer in the lobby. Then his mother. Her face in the wood, lips barely moving. "Don't forget me," James cried out, covering his ears, as the sound of weeping filled the room. From the floor. From the walls. From inside him. The woman drifted closer. "You opened the door. Now, choose." James gasped. Choose what?" The candle relit itself at the vanity, casting light on the guest book, now open on the desk. There were 2 empty lines. "One must stay," she whispered again, tilting her head. You, or her? James's mind reeled. She was offering him a trade. His soul for his mother's. If he stayed, Margaret would go free. After all these years, her torment would end. She could move on. And he would take her place. Live in the mirror. In the walls. Forgotten. Forever. James's hands trembled. No. There has to be another way. But the woman was silent now. Waiting. Watching. Like she always had. The candle flickered once. Then again. Choose. James stood. Staggered toward the guest book. He picked up the red pen laid neatly beside it. Tears streamed down his face. He looked toward the mirror cracked, but showing her again. His mother. Young. Whole. Smiling. A silent, pleading smile. He pressed the pen to paper. And wrote, James Evans, room 313. Underneath, in the red ink, claimed by her, the pages turned on their own. The book snapped shut. And the door to room 313 closed behind him. The next morning, a woman stood in the lobby. Gray-haired. Kind eyes. Confused, but smiling. Margaret Evans. Gloria handed her a coat. You'll want to head out before the fog rolls in, she said gently. Margaret nodded, eyes brimming with tears. I don't know how I got here. But I feel like someone saved me. Gloria gave a small smile. Someone always does. Later that night, a couple checked in. The man glanced at the key wall. All the rooms taken. Gloria handed him a tag. It read, 313. It just opened up, she said softly. A vacancy.